if there is anything that most of us have got more than enough in our lives, generally speaking, besides coronavirus, because I think by this point most of us are fed up with it, but what can you do? So if there is that one thing, I think that would be clutter. We live in a culture that encourages us to accumulate stuff, and I'm not telling you anything new right now, I'm sure. But there are different ways to look at clutter and different and better ways to deal with it. I am Katerina George, writer and vlogger, and on this channel I publish vlogs about lifestyle, about my travels, as well as my Romanian background and culture. Now, today we're going to talk about one aspect of lifestyle that affects most of us, and that is, yes, you've guessed correctly, clutter. Maybe the best place to start talking about clutter is by defining what clutter is. It might look simple at first sight, but maybe it is not all that simple. And I will start by using this saying that one man's clutter is another woman's treasure. I don't even know if that saying exists, but I made it up right now, so now it exists. And of course, I started this saying from the situation that I have at hand, which is with my partner Adrian and myself. What he sees as clutter, I see as my golden nuggets, my little treasure that I leave scattered all around the house. Can you guess what it is? It isn't clothes, although that would be close. So to break off the suspense, it's books. Books are my most precious treasure besides the people that I love and cherish in my life. So, yeah, you will often find my coloring books on the kitchen table, where on weekend mornings I sit down, I have my cup of tea, my breakfast or snacks or whatever I'm eating at that point, and I might color for 20 minutes, half an hour. Then I crack on with the day and I leave my books on the table with my coloring pencils and everything, in the hope that later on I'll return to them and do more coloring. Or maybe thinking, oh, I'll do more coloring tomorrow morning as well, which doesn't often happen. So then my coloring books end up living on the kitchen table, which, yeah, gives Adrian a pretty good reason to see books as clutter. Still, I had one big victory in this respect. Now, the victory that I've just mentioned is having this bookcase in the lounge. For me, having books around is like having nature around. It's food for my soul. But I do understand why Adrian likes to have the lounge as airy and peaceful and spacious as possible, because it is a place of relaxation, and you don't really want your place where you tend to relax to be very busy. But still, when we moved some furniture around, I talked to him and insisted a little bit on having some books for my soul in this room as well, and he got used to them. They're here behind the door. Usually he sits on the sofa facing the other way, so that's it. I also have some books on the windowsill behind the big telly screen, so they're again out of the way. Now, my literature books, poetry books, they do tend to create a little bit of clutter around the house as well, because sometimes I just pile them up by my corner on the sofa, or leave them on the staircase, or again on the kitchen table, or around in the bathroom where I love reading in a hot bath. So yes, I'm a little bit of a person creating clutter with books and with clothes. Now, I do find that most clutter is made by the things we love, and that is why we accumulate it. It can be clothes, jewelry, as I said, it can be gardening tools, it can be books, or whatever it is that we really enjoy in our lives. And most of it is actually hidden. That was the case with this side of this bookcase, because I used to just hide in here and pile up in here my coloring books, my notebooks, and I do tend to be a little bit of a notebooks addict. I buy them, I write a few poems in each of them, and then I start a new one. Yeah, another way to create clutter. But most clutter is hidden, so that is the question. How is that clutter that we keep away out of sight impacting on our lives? And it actually is, because at the back of our minds, we do think about it, we know it's here. Like last week, I managed to sort out finally the final stage of getting everything organized in this section of the bookcase, getting rid of what I didn't need and I was just keeping there just in case. Yeah, so that's a little bit of a hoarder instinct, I think, which I get from my grandma. But we'll talk about this a little bit later, because that's a quite sweet story, to be honest. So how is my cupboard looking right now, this section of the bookcase, after I managed to sort it out last week? Let's have a look. There it is. I have my coloring books here. I have some big books here, like hardcover books that wouldn't necessarily fit anywhere else. I have a Robert Burns poem from Robbie Burns Night. The first time that I celebrated it this year. I haven't opened it yet. I'll keep it maybe till next year. I've got some photographs that I brought from Romania, from my childhood here, and everything. Oh, my recording equipment here as well, and everything is just accessible and looks a lot better and less busy. And it isn't at the back of my mind any longer. Now, the opposite of creating clutter all the time around you would be, to me, just thinking about tidying up and organizing all the time, because both sides can be pretty tiring. And I'm not talking about OCD, which is a condition and it's quite difficult on people who have it. I've met people who had that diagnosis with OCD. But I'm just talking about the two opposites of the spectrum, just not caring about tidiness at all or creating clutter regularly around you and just having tidiness all the time in your mind. I think my father is more of the person who tends to tidy a lot, although he's not quite obsessed about it. He can forget about it if there's something he wants to do and he enjoys, such as a football game. Then my mother is a little bit of the opposite. She always finds something good to do, and organizing can wait. And that's why when she cooks, the kitchen tends to be a complete jungle, and I have to say I take after her. Why don't I show you now how the kitchen looks like when it is my cooking scene? Do you know what? Having just rewatched that myself right now, I do understand that Adrian has got a big task helping me with the dishes and with tidying up after I cook. I now appreciate it a lot more. Now, over the last year and a half, I found better ways to store the things that I love, such as the clothes, my jewellery, my belts. I have a big collection of belts as well, a big collection of makeup. And in storing my makeup, I got inspired by my friend Elisa, who was a guest on a couple of my vlogs. She presented her Doom box, which is a big professional makeup box, which both of us found very useful because I bought one myself after she showed hers on one of my older vlogs. But yeah, we can store things better, we can organize things better, we can try and be more organized and tidy in our lives as not to leave too many things trailing behind us, like I mentioned at the beginning of this vlog. But at the same time, I think it's really important to focus on not creating more mental clutter, because being concerned all the time that I didn't put something back, or oh God, I have laundry to sort out when I get home, or maybe I did not manage to mop the floor in the kitchen when I wanted to. These thoughts are actually going to clutter our brain. And there's nothing worse than mind clutter, because that is where unnecessary stress originates. That is where it lives, and it turns into monsters much bigger than the little things that maybe we did not manage to do today or this week. So to me, this is the most important lesson about clutter. Yeah, find better ways to organize it, but also do not keep your mind too busy with little things that, you'll get better organized next time. I hope you're enjoying watching this and maybe finding it useful as well. Maybe some of the things that we already talked about will trigger some thoughts, and you'll go back to looking at your own clutter maybe. And if you do enjoy this vlog and maybe find it useful as well, remember to give me thumbs up, and that way you help me as well. And remember to subscribe to my channel for further such vlogs to follow. But before we wrap up this vlog, I want to tell you a quite sweet and a little bit sad story about my grandma. My maternal grandma, with whom I grew up for quite a number of years, in this communist flat in the city of Timișoara in Romania. Our flat was comprised of 2 rooms. They were both bedroom and lounge and everything, and sitting room and everything in one. We had a hallway, a pantry, a cupboard, bathroom and the kitchen, and that was the whole flat. So it wasn't very spacious, and my grandma came from a background where they were a very poor family of 9 children. She used to tell me her stories about her childhood where they couldn't afford to go or to school because in winter they wouldn't have enough shoes to go out in the cold or enough coats. Not every child in the family could have a coat or a pair of shoes. So, that is quite difficult and stark poverty. So a lot of people who come from such a background, they do tend to hoard things. And my grandma was a little bit of a hoarder too. She found it difficult to get rid of even plastic boxes or, whatever little things that maybe she could find a use for sometime. And we used to have some space behind the wardrobe, the big wardrobe in the main bigger room, about a meter there, where she would store everything in cardboard boxes and cover it with a blanket or something. I do remember that quite fondly. Our little hoarding corner space behind the wardrobe. But at the same time, Grandma kept everything that I have ever written, letters that I've exchanged with my high school friend, my best friend, when we were away over the summer holiday. And that makes me sad now, because when my parents moved to the house where they live right now, my mom seems to have lost all of my notebooks with my poetry that I wrote in my childhood, because I've been writing since the age of 8. None of my diaries survived or were taken over with them. And if my grandma was still alive then, but she wasn't so much in power any longer, and she wasn't, capable of organizing things. But if it was up to her, I know that I would still have all of those notebooks. But, that's life. You just lose some, you win some, and that's it. You can't keep crying for the things that you've lost. After that very personal and sweet and a little bit sad story, it is time to wrap up this vlog for today. But not before I ask you how you manage with the clutter in your life. Do you find your mind clutter sometimes with thoughts, worries, things to do, things you haven't done, things you'd like to do, things you want to plan, and all of that? And how do you manage with that? Now, hoping that you did enjoy this vlog, I will tell you ciao for now, until next time.